not even mean Bowers game for me.
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review, and a special expansion review. And today I'm very excited checking out Scythe, the Wind Gambit from Stonemaier Games. This is still for 1 to 6 players, still taking about the same amount of time, like all that good stuff. But Scythe, the Wind Gambit adds 2 new modules to the game, 2 new modules that, wow, could really shake up the game. So first you're going to have these little wind gambits, and everybody's going to have a wind gambit that is going to flow around, and each game those wind gambits are going to have different powers and different special abilities that you will be able to use that can really shake things up. Next, to a lot of people's relief, they also have resolution tiles. That's the other new addition to this game, and resolution tiles are going to make it so that after 6 stars, someone does not immediately win the game. There's going to be something else that will potentially happen. Different end game conditions. But are they good? Let's open it up, and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Scythe, the Wind Gambit. So first and foremost, we're going to handy dandy rule booklet. It's probably about 8-9 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations. It's pretty well done. It should have you up and running pretty quickly. I also like the fact that there's errata and variants in the back where they kind of say, hey, if you have an older version of the rule booklet, here's some things that we fixed in that rule booklet. So really cool that they included that. More companies should do that sort of thing. Really big fan of that. I also want to mention that I have this right here, which is an achievement sheet. I personally don't use it, but I think it's a cool concept trying to make video gamify the game. And then also you're going to get the Autonoma cards and the Autonoma rules, which I have not had a chance to play because I would prefer to play Scythe with people, but nothing against you if you don't. So in Scythe, the Wind Gambit, you are going to be getting 2 completely new modules to Scythe. So first we're going to talk about the Wind Gambit, which are going to be these incredibly nice looking big ships that are going to be flying around the map. Now, these things, when you put them together, you are going to have to disassemble them and reassemble them each time unless you get yourself a custom box insert. But out of the box, that's how you're going to be able to put them together, and these things are really striking. They look really stinking cool. And each player is going to get one of these. Even the 2 new factions, they have their own in there as well. So if you have the other expansion, you will be able to play the Wind Gambit with that expansion as well, which is nice. Now, what are these going to do? These are going to be flying around the map. They're very different. They're not going to get into combat most of the time, unless you have a certain tile that says so. And they're going to be able to transport either goods or people to different parts of the map, which opens up the map a little bit quicker, especially if you're able to transport the small people, the workers, to different parts of the map so you can get that valuable commodity that you might not otherwise be able to get. So it does actually, we found, speed up the game a little bit because you're able to get to certain spots you want to a little bit faster. That's assuming you are transporting the people and not the goods. Now, how do you know what you're going to be transporting? Well, you're going to have these 2 types of tiles right here. You have the aggressive red back tiles and you have the passive green back tiles. So at the beginning of the game, there's 2 different ways to play it. You can, you're going to take one of the red and one of the green and you're going to put them right here. And this is the special ability that everyone's Wind Gambit is going to have. Now, that's if you were newer to the expansion. Now, what I personally like to do, and we did it on the second time we played it, was everybody had their own completely unique asymmetrical Wind Gambit. So everybody had one of these tiles, but I could see how that would be overwhelming. So let's go over some of the tiles and you'll get a feel for what they do. So these are the aggressive ones, and this is Bombard. Before you engage in combat on your airship's territory, you may pay 1, 2, 3 resources from this airship to reduce your opponent's power by 1, 3, or 5. So very cool. So essentially, if you are playing with this card, then your Wind Gambit will be able to carry resources and then drop them on people in order to lower their power before you attack. Yeah, some really cool new concepts being introduced into the game. Bounty. Before you engage in combat on your airship's territory, you may pay 1, 2, 3 resources from your airship to remove 1, 2, 3 of your units from anywhere to here. So you're going to be able to kind of get people there a little bit faster. And as you can see, it says in the upper right hand corner that your airship can carry 3 resources. This one, on the other hand, can carry people. So this one's going to be able to carry 2 of your workers, not mechs, not your hero, but your workers. After combat on your airship's territory between any players, gain $1 per worker on your airship plus $1. So essentially, this is kind of working as like a flying photographer trying to go where combat is in order to gain money, which is a really stinking cool concept. Like, these are really, really neat. We'll take a look at more and more. Siege engine. Opponent may not move their characters and mechs out of your airship's territory unless they pay you $1 per unit moved. So each of these is going to modify how your airship will work. Is it going to be used on attack? Is it going to be used kind of passive aggressively? Or are you going to use it to drop people down to gain resources? It's up to you. It's going to open up avenues on how you play the game. But that's not the only part that's going to be part of your airship, because your airship is also going to have a passive ability, which are going to be these green abilities down here. So let's take a look at some of these. So this symbol in the upper right-hand corner is going to tell you how many spaces your airship will be able to move. So some of them might be faster than others if everybody has their own unique airship. So Reap, whenever your worker produces resources on your airship's territory, produce +1 resource of that type here. So it kind of works as that one, the windmill, so to speak. The Safe Haven, if your airship territory is unoccupied by opponents, you control the territory and your opponents may retreat here from anywhere. This is incredibly powerful, allowing you to retreat to this area, because normally the airship does not count for control of territories. It just kind of floats around and does its own little thing. Next, we have Craft. On territories not controlled by opponents, your airship can build structures and deploy mechs as if it were a worker, which once again can be very powerful if used in the right situation. We'll get one more because I love these tiles. Negotiate. When your character has an encounter on your airship's territory, you may choose one additional option on the encounter card. So this one, if you have this one, you might just be having him float around with your big leader trying to get those additional options. But as you can see, these things, wow, they add an incredible variety to the game. And while yes, it is fun to have your own custom airships, I personally think it's even more fun when everybody has their own customized airships, but I'll talk more about that in the pros and cons. So that's what you're going to get inside the airship. You're going to be able to transport goods, and you're going to be able to transport the people. The other module in the game are going to be these resolutions right here, which I know a lot of people are really excited about. These are going to be different ways that the game will end, and you're going to be able to play with a different one each time. It also says in the rule booklet, if you find one way that your group particularly likes, then just to stick with that. But we'll go over a couple of these because they really do change up how the end game works. So Deja Vu, the first time all accessible encounter tokens have been removed from the board, reset them on each encounter territory not occupied by a character. If one of these things is true about a player, when they complete their turn, the game ends, they remove the final accessible encounter token. They have 6 stars on the triumph track. So this one's all about those encounter tokens. So everybody's going to be going buck wild for those. King of the Hill, the first time each player controls the factory at the beginning of the turn, they may place a star on the resolution tile, max 1 star per player. After a player places their 6th star and completes their turn, no more stars may be placed on the resolution tile. Play continues until each player who has a star on the resolution tile takes 1 final turn, then the game ends. So as you can see, definitely some weird stuff here, some different stuff. The Doomsday Clock, pretty self-explanatory. After 20 turns, game is over. Land Rush, I like this one a lot. The game is not going to end when someone gets 6 stars. They also have to control 10 or more different territories along with the 6 stars in order to end the game. We have the Backup Plan, which is probably my favorite one. I really like this one. I think a lot of people are going to like this one. Essentially, the game ends the exact same way as before. So after someone gets that 6 star, the game ends immediately. You tally up how many points you have, and then if the person who ends the game is the winner, then the game's over. But if the person who ends the game is not the winner, then everybody gets 1 more turn, which I kind of like. Then Mission Impossible. During setup, you're going to reveal 2 random objective cards, the ones with the little arrows there, the little bird there, from the track, and place them next to the Triumph track. Players may achieve the revealed objectives in addition to the objective on the Triumph track. After players place 6 stars, each other player takes 1 final turn, but they may not move units. So this is going to allow you different ways that you will be able to get stars, but everyone else is going to be able to get those stars as well. So very interesting there. But that, in a nutshell, is what you're going to get inside of Scythe, the Wind Gambit. Alright then, Scythe, the Wind Gambit from Stonemaier Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go with the pros, let's go with the cons. First, on the con side, game's not going to be for everybody for a variety of different reasons. If you didn't like Scythe because it was too lengthy, this will not change your mind. However, if you didn't like Scythe for a variety of other different reasons, this one could potentially change your mind. It might cause you to pause and potentially revisit Scythe, but I'll talk more about that in the pros. But if length and maybe complexity was something that bugs you about this game, then that has not changed. In fact, the game has gotten slightly more complex with those wind gambits and with potentially different wind conditions. Before it was pretty cut and dry. Get those 6 stars, end of the game. But now it is a little bit more complex, which might be a turnoff to some people. Another comment I have with this game is that it's not going to fit in your base box. Oh, I hate that. Now, they're coming out with a larger Scythe box, which is great, but the fact is you're going to have to put everything back into this box and have that on your shelf. And if you have the other expansion, you have to do the same thing for that one, presumably. which means they're going to be taking up a good deal of shelf space. Another minor con that I have of this is you are going to have to disassemble the ships every single time if you want to put them back in the box, which that's more of a minor nitpick, and everything else that I'm about to tell you is probably going to be a minor nitpick because that's what I got on the con side. Moving on to the pro side. Oh my gosh, Scythe the Wind Gambit is fantastic. It is an amazing expansion that you need to get for Scythe if you like Scythe. And I like it better than the first expansion. I like the first expansion. I like the fact that it goes up to 6 players. It adds the 2 new factions. I thought that was just gangbusters. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so freaking fantastic. No, this, my friends, is fantastic. If you like Scythe, you need to get this. It's just that simple. And here's the thing. I'm kind of torn on which of the modules I like best because I like both of them so stinking much. So first, I think this module is going to be the most popular, the resolution module, because that is the most common complaint I've heard from a lot of people that do not like Scythe, is the fact that the game ends once someone gets 6 stars, and it just ends abruptly, and it just kind of tears everyone from the game, and you might not even know that that person is getting 6 stars if you're not paying careful enough attention, and people do not like that, because this Scythe has always been a game about forward planning. What am I going to do on this move? What am I going to do on the next move? What am I going to do on the third move? This is what I'm going to do on that third move. That third move's really that move that I need to get to, and if the game ends abruptly, that's going to be a big bummer. So I think a lot of people are really going to like the resolution tiles. Now that being said, I'm not the biggest fan of all the resolution tiles. I played 3 times. I've gotten a chance to play with these modules now, and I was not a fan of one of the resolution tiles. But it does even say in the rules that you should probably talk to your game group, and if you like a resolution tile, stick with that resolution tile, because they do drastically change how the game can potentially end. And I think that's a really cool thing. At the same time, I do think some people are going to bag on that and be like, oh, yeah, they couldn't come up with an ending to the game, so now they're giving you 8 different choices. Yeah, that's really cheap. And I can't say I disagree with them. To a certain extent, I could see their point. I definitely can see their point that this just feels like a cheap way to end the game how you want to end the game. But at the same time, how many other games are going to let you do that? I actually really dig that, and I think a lot of people are going to like the resolution tiles, and I think the resolution tiles are going to give the game some longer staying power for a lot of people. But for me personally, oh, the Wind Gambit, the Wind Gambit. This is not Scythe, the resolution tiles. This is Scythe, the Wind Gambit, and the Wind Gambit is freaking cool. You start off with this giant Wind Gambit, and it's floating around, and depending on your passive and your aggressive abilities, that Wind Gambit is going to completely potentially change how you play the game. You need oil, you need oil, you need oil. You don't start with oil. Guess what? You can just boop, drop one of your workers down there on some oil, and you're good to go. You got that oil. Or you might have some of the really interesting ones where it's like, all right, I want my Wind Gambit to stay with my mechs and my big guys, because when I do combat, I'm going to be able to do an extra special thing, like that bombard ability. That is so cool, where you're going to be dropping resources on people to knock down their attack. Now, that's one thing that I do worry about in the con side. I've already heard some people complain about how Scythe might be slightly unbalanced to this faction or that faction. I've always kind of just rubbed that off and said, I poo-pooed that a little bit, because I've probably heard how 3 different factions are slightly overpowered. And when I hear people saying that different factions are overpowered, that means that they're kind of equally powered. But I do potentially worry about how some of these tile combinations, especially if you're playing the game with everyone having their own unique Wind Gambit and their own 2 tiles in front of them, could lead to potentially an overbalanced combination. But that being said, if you're randomizing, which is definitely the way to go at the beginning of the game, I don't think that's going to rear its ugly head too terribly often. But in the end, that is worth the price of admission alone, in my opinion. The resolution tiles, I probably always will play with the resolution tile, in particular the backup plan. I really love that one. The fact that it keeps the same endgame state, where if you're rushing to that 6th star because you think you're going to win the game, then you're going to win the game. But if not, everybody else gets one more turn. I really like that. I also really like the Doomsday Clock. I like that one a lot. I like the one... I like most of them, to be honest with you. But I'm rambling here. Scythe the Wind Gambit. It's just this simple. If you like Scythe, if you love Scythe, this is a must-own expansion. It's just that simple. The Wind Gambit is fantastic. The resolution tiles, I think a lot of people are going to absolutely love. If you did not like Scythe, if you were okay on Scythe, or you thought it was just average, if you thought it was way too much hype, it wasn't Game of the Year or anything like that, I think this is still an expansion that you want to go and try, because it changes up strategies in the game, which is what was another common complaint, that it was kind of like, it felt like you were on a rail. And with some of these Wind Gambits, with some of these special abilities, this kind of changes how you play the game. And really, really like it. Scythe, the Wind Gambit, absolutely fantastic. Go get this one if you're a Scythe fan. Go try this one if you're ho-hum on Scythe, in my personal opinion. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. What is your least favorite expansion of all time? Let's go least favorite expansion of all time. For me personally, it was, oh my gosh, one of the 2 expansions for Third and Taxis was a giant pile of crap. It was so terrible. It just, it annoyed me so much. It was like this big box expansion. You thought you were getting a completely, thought you were getting modules for the game, but in actuality, it was kind of like a different game, but it just used the same pieces from the original Third and Taxis, and me and my wife were so disappointed on that. Yeah, I hated that expansion. I actually got rid of that expansion and kept the base game. But let me know in the comments below. What's your least favorite expansion? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.